Why 42% of retirees may get nothing right now. Many retirees believe a simple idea. If a new $2,000 stimulus happens, I'll probably qualify. But under the rules being discussed, that assumption could cost people real money. According to current eligibility models, as many as 42% of retirees would receive $0, not because the program ran out of money and not because they did anything wrong, but because they misunderstand how eligibility actually works. This is not about headlines. It's about rules. Stimulus payments are not based on age, need, or monthly expenses. They are based on tax records, filing status, and how income is reported inside the IRS system. And that's where many retirees unknowingly fall into the exclusion group. Some believe Social Security income automatically qualifies them. Others assume household income is counted the same way they count bills at home. Many think being under a certain headline number guarantees a check. None of that is reliably true. For retirees, $2,000 is not extra money. It's rent, it's prescriptions, it's groceries. And losing it because of a misunderstanding, not income, is the most painful outcome of all. In this video, we'll break down why so many retirees are at risk of getting nothing, which rules actually matter, and how to know where you stand before making assumptions. Because when it comes to stimulus payments, the difference between receiving money and receiving zero often comes down to one thing: understanding the rules instead of guessing them. The biggest mistake retirees make about income. One of the biggest reasons so many retirees fall into the $0 group comes down to a single misunderstanding. They calculate income the wrong way. Most retirees think about income the way households do: money coming into the home from all sources, all people, all at once. That feels logical. But stimulus eligibility does not work that way. The IRS does not look at household income. It looks at tax filing income. That difference matters more than almost anything else. Eligibility is based on how you file your taxes: single, married filing, jointly, head of household, and the adjusted gross income tied to that specific return. Not who lives under your roof, not how many adults contribute to bills, and not how expenses are shared. In multi-generation households, this mistake is especially common. Parents assume adult children's income disqualifies them. Grandparents believe living with family automatically pushes them over the limit. In reality, one person's income does not cancel another person's eligibility unless they are claimed as a dependent on the same tax return. This misunderstanding alone causes thousands of retirees to assume they don't qualify and never check further. And once that assumption is made, money that could have been received is simply lost. Understanding how the IRS defines income is the first step toward knowing whether you're truly eligible or accidentally excluding yourself. The real income limits and why headlines get them wrong. One of the most misleading parts of stimulus coverage is the income number people remember. You've probably seen headlines saying things like, payments for people earning under $100,000. That sounds simple, and it sounds reassuring, but it's also incomplete. Stimulus eligibility does not rely on one universal income limit. Instead, it depends on filing status. Based on past stimulus frameworks, the full payment typically applies to single filers with income up to $75,000, married couples filing jointly up to $150,000, head of household up to $112,500. Above those levels, payments don't disappear instantly. They phase out gradually. This is where many retirees lose money without realizing it. People hear a single number, assume they're over it, and stop checking. But being slightly above the threshold often means you still qualify for a partial payment, sometimes most of it. A retiree with income just over the limit might still receive $1,500 or more. But if they assume I make too much, that money is never claimed. Another important detail is what income actually counts. The IRS looks at adjusted gross income, not monthly cash flow and not pre-tax assumptions. That includes Social Security only if part of it is taxable, which varies by situation. Headlines simplify, rules don't. Knowing the real limits and how phase-outs work can mean the difference between receiving something and receiving nothing. The 7 factors that actually decide stimulus eligibility. At this point, it's important to understand one critical truth. Stimulus eligibility is not decided by one number. It's decided by a combination of factors, and missing just one can mean the difference between receiving money and receiving nothing. Based on prior stimulus rules, there are 7 key factors that matter most. First is adjusted gross income, or AGI. This is the number the IRS actually uses, not your monthly deposits and not your total household cash flow. Second is your filing status. Single, married filing jointly, or head of household each comes with different thresholds and rules. Third is whether someone else claims you as a dependent. If you are claimed, you may be excluded even if your income is low. Fourth is whether you claim dependents. This can affect total payment amounts. Fifth is whether you have a recent tax return on file with the IRS. No recent record often means delays or missed payments entirely. Sixth is whether you receive Social Security, SSDI, SSI, or VA benefits. These programs interact differently with stimulus distribution systems. And seventh is whether the payment is sent as an advance payment or a refundable tax credit, a detail that determines timing and how you receive the money. None of these factors exist in isolation. The system looks at them together. That's why guessing eligibility based on income alone leaves so many retirees on the outside looking in. Why non-filers and Social Security recipients are often delayed. One of the most misunderstood parts of stimulus payments involves people who don't normally file taxes. Many retirees assume that because they receive Social Security, SSDI, or SSI, and because they are not required to file a tax return, the IRS automatically has everything it needs. That assumption is often wrong. Stimulus payments are issued through the IRS system, not directly through Social Security, and the IRS relies heavily on recent tax records to determine eligibility, payment amount, and where to send the money. If there is no recent return on file, the system has gaps. In past stimulus rounds, millions of seniors experienced delays, not because they were ineligible, but because the IRS did not have updated information. Addresses were outdated, bank information was missing, or income data was too old to verify automatically. Some retirees eventually received payments months later. Others had to wait until the money was reissued as a refundable tax credit, which meant filing a return they never expected to file. This is especially frustrating for people who did nothing wrong. Not filing taxes is legal for many seniors, but not being visible in the IRS system can quietly slow everything down. That's why non-filers and Social Security recipients often receive payments last, even when they qualify. Understanding this timing issue doesn't fix the delay, but it explains why eligible does not always mean fast. The 6 eligibility groups and why. One rule does not fit all. One reason stimulus rules cause so much confusion is because people assume everyone is evaluated the same way. They're not. In reality, retirees fall into 6 distinct eligibility groups, and each group interacts with the rules differently. The first group is working single filers. Eligibility depends on individual AGI and filing status, not age. The second group is married couples filing jointly. Here, combined AGI matters, but phase-outs are wider, meaning many couples still qualify for partial payments. The third group is households with dependents. Claiming dependents can increase payment amounts, but it also adds complexity if dependents are adults or shared across households. The fourth group is retirees over 65 receiving Social Security only. Many qualify, but delays are common if there's no recent tax return on file. The fifth group includes people receiving SSDI or SSI. Historically, SSI recipients almost always qualify, but payment timing depends on how information is shared with the IRS. The sixth group is multi-generation households. This is where confusion peaks. Living together does not merge eligibility. Each filer is evaluated separately unless claimed as a dependent. These groups overlap, but they don't follow identical rules. That's why copying someone else's situation rarely works. Eligibility is personal, not communal. Assuming my situation is the same as theirs is one of the fastest ways retirees miss money they were entitled to receive. 3 reasons eligible retirees still receive 0. This is where many retirees feel the most frustration. They meet the income limits. They fall into an eligible group, and yet the payment never arrives. In most cases, that happens for 3 specific reasons. The first reason is being claimed as a dependent. Even if your income is low, even if you are retired, if another taxpayer legally claims you as a dependent, your own stimulus eligibility can drop to 0. This surprises many seniors living with family members. The second reason involves federal offsets. If you owe certain federal debts, such as past due child support, certain tax debts, or government-related obligations, stimulus payments can be intercepted before they ever reach you. Eligibility exists on paper, but the money is redirected. The third reason is missing or invalid identification in the IRS system. People without a valid Social Security number for work purposes or those using only an ITIN are often excluded under stimulus rules, even if they paid taxes for years. None of these reasons have anything to do with need, and none of them are obvious when people read headlines. That's why so many retirees say, "I qualified, but I got nothing." Understanding these exclusion triggers matters because they explain why eligibility alone is not enough. The system applies filters, and if you hit one, the payment stops. Phase-outs. Why being over the limit doesn't mean losing everything. One of the most costly misunderstandings retirees make is believing this: if I'm over the income limit, I get nothing. That belief is wrong, and it has caused many eligible retirees to miss out on money they were entitled to receive. Under stimulus rules, income limits are not hard stop signs. They are phase-out ranges. That means payments decrease gradually as income rises. They don't disappear all at once. For example, someone earning just slightly above the full payment threshold may still qualify for a large partial payment. In past programs, retirees who assumed they were too high often left behind $1,200, $1,500 or more, simply because they never checked the math. Phase-outs are calculated using adjusted gross income, not monthly spending or cash on hand, and the reduction happens in steps, not cliffs. This is especially important for retirees with mixed income, Social Security, combined with small pensions, part-time work, or withdrawals from retirement accounts. A one-time income bump can move you into phase-out territory without eliminating eligibility entirely. But here's the problem. Once someone assumes they are disqualified, they stop paying attention. They don't verify, they don't claim, and partial payments that could have helped cover real expenses are never received. The lesson is simple. Being over the limit does not automatically mean zero. Assuming it does is how money gets left on the table. Scams, misinformation, and what retirees must ignore. Whenever stimulus payments are discussed, something else appears almost immediately: misinformation and scams. For retirees, this is one of the most dangerous parts of the process because uncertainty creates opportunity for bad actors. Here's the most important rule to remember. The IRS does not call you about stimulus payments. They do not text you. They do not email you asking for personal information, fees, or confirmation to release your money. Any message that creates urgency, act now, verify immediately, payment on hold, is not legitimate. Another problem comes from misleading online content. Videos, posts, and ads often oversimplify eligibility. They say things like everyone qualifies or money is guaranteed. Those statements are not true, and believing them leads retirees to stop checking real rules. Scams don't always steal money directly. Sometimes they steal confidence. They convince people to stop paying attention, stop verifying, or trust the wrong source. The safest information always comes from official IRS websites and direct government notices, not forwarded messages, not social media, and not people offering paid help to speed things up. In moments like this, doing nothing is often safer than doing the wrong thing. Ignoring noise, hype, and pressure protects retirees far better than reacting to urgency that was never real. What retirees should do instead of guessing eligibility. At this stage, many retirees are doing the same thing. They're guessing. They hear a headline, they remember a number, they compare themselves to a friend or a family member, and then they quietly decide, "I probably qualify," or "I probably don't." That approach is risky. Stimulus eligibility is not intuitive, and it's not designed to be guessed correctly. It's based on specific IRS data points, not feelings or comparisons. Instead of guessing, retirees should focus on 3 concrete steps. First, know your filing status and most recent adjusted gross income. These 2 pieces of information alone eliminate most confusion. They are the foundation of eligibility. Second, confirm whether the IRS has a recent tax return on file for you. Even a simple or zero income return can make the difference between automatic payment and long delays. Third, understand whether you are claimed as a dependent or if you claim someone else. This single factor has excluded more retirees than almost any other rule. None of this requires advanced tax knowledge. It requires clarity, not speed. The worst outcome isn't being ineligible. The worst outcome is assuming you're ineligible when you're not and never checking further. Replacing guesswork with verification doesn't guarantee a payment, but it ensures that if you qualify, you don't lose money simply because you didn't look closely enough. Why checking eligibility does not mean filing taxes immediately. One of the biggest reasons retirees avoid checking eligibility is fear. Fear that looking too closely will force them to file taxes. Fear that it will create new obligations. Fear that once they open the door, they can't close it again. That fear is understandable, but it's also misplaced. Checking eligibility does not automatically require you to file a tax return. It does not trigger audits, and it does not create new legal duties by itself. Eligibility review is about information, not action. You can confirm your filing status. You can review your most recent adjusted gross income. You can check whether the IRS has a return on file. None of those steps commit you to filing anything immediately. In fact, many retirees who ultimately do need to file, such as non-filers who qualify for a refundable credit, benefit from knowing that before deadlines pass, not after money is missed. Avoiding eligibility checks doesn't protect you. It only increases the chance of surprise later. Another important point, filing a simple or zero-income return is not a punishment. For many retirees, it's a technical step, not a financial burden, and it's often the only way to claim money you already qualify for. Knowing your position gives you options, not knowing removes them. Checking eligibility is about clarity, not commitment. The final mistake that causes retirees to miss the $2,000 after income rules, filing status, phase-outs, and delays. There is one final mistake that quietly causes retirees to miss stimulus money. They do nothing and assume the system will fix it later. This mistake often sounds reasonable. If I qualify, the money will come. If there's a problem, the IRS will notify me. If I miss it now, I can always get it later. Unfortunately, that's not how stimulus programs work. In past stimulus rounds, unclaimed payments did not wait forever. Deadlines passed, filing windows closed, and people who never checked eligibility or never filed when required lost the money permanently. The system does not chase individuals. It processes records. If the IRS does not have the right information at the right time, payments move on without pause. This is especially dangerous for retirees who assume Social Security alone guarantees payment, or for those who believe partial payments aren't worth the effort, or for those who think missing one round doesn't matter. It does. Once a stimulus opportunity expires, there is no appeal based on need, age, or hardship. The rules are mechanical, not emotional. The final mistake is not misunderstanding the rules. It's assuming time is unlimited when it isn't. How retirees should think about this $2,000 without stress. At this stage, the most important issue is no longer the rules. It's mindset. For many retirees, the idea of a $2,000 stimulus quickly becomes emotional. It feels personal. It feels necessary. And over time, it can quietly turn into something people count on even before it's confirmed. That's where stress begins. A healthier way to think about this money is simple. Treat it as possible, not promised. If the payment happens and you qualify, it can help cover real needs, groceries, utilities, medical costs. But your financial stability should never depend on a payment that is still tied to rules, deadlines, and IRS records. This mindset protects you from two extremes. The first is false hope, building expectations around money that may never arrive. The second is constant worry, fearing loss before anything has even been decided. Neither helps. Retirees who manage this best focus on what they can control, their records, their eligibility awareness, and their response timing. They don't panic, they don't assume, and they don't ignore deadlines. Instead, they stay informed, prepared, and flexible. Thinking clearly about the $2,000 doesn't reduce its importance. It protects your peace of mind while waiting. And in retirement, calm decision-making is just as valuable as any single payment. The final takeaway, how not to lose $2,000 just by assuming. As we close, there is one final message every retiree needs to hear clearly. Most people who miss out on stimulus money do not lose it because they were ineligible. They lose it because they assumed they were. They assumed their income was too high. They assumed Social Security handled everything. They assumed living with family disqualified them. They assumed being over a limit meant zero. They assumed there would always be another chance. Those assumptions, not the rules themselves, are what cost people real money. Stimulus programs don't reward need, they don't reward effort, and they don't correct misunderstandings. They reward accurate records, correct timing, and people who verify instead of guess. For retirees, the safest position is not optimism or pessimism. It's informed realism. Know your filing status, know your AGI, know whether the IRS has current information for you, and know that partial eligibility is still eligibility. If you qualify, act within the window. If you don't, you lose nothing by knowing the truth. But assuming without checking is how $2,000 quietly disappears. In retirement, financial protection rarely comes from big moves. It comes from small habits, checking instead of guessing, understanding instead of assuming, and acting before deadlines close. That's how retirees protect both their money and their peace of mind.